I got 4.
I got 4.
And I got 4 for you.
Okay, cool.
Beautiful.
All right. My thighs are fat.
Same.
Okay. Who are you?
All right. Hey there. I'm talking to you or the camera? Okay.
Don't worry.
Gotcha. All right. My name is Alicia Harris. I am I started my 25th year as a teacher in the GUSD, and I have been one of the co-sponsors of the GSA at Crescent Valley High School for around 12 to 14 years or so, and also proudly one of the, let's say, founding members, so to speak, of glendaleOUT.
I'm Greg James. So, Alicia, I have 4 questions for you.
All right.
Okay. What is GSA?
All right. So I'm going to share formally what GSA is about, but then a little bit more just what I know it on the ground, what GSA is. So a GSA was originally a Gay Straight Alliance, which was a club that was formed first in San Francisco in 1998. They have been rebranded in recent years as Gender Sexuality Alliances, so still GSAs. And what they are formally is student-run, that's key, student-run organizations that unite LGBTQ plus and allied youth to build community and organize around issues impacting them in their schools and communities. Again, as I shared, I happen to be one of the co-sponsors of the GSA at Crescent Valley High School. Like all clubs on our campus, it is student-driven, and it is really just probably the loveliest place to be for a half an hour every week for young people that just need a place to belong. And I would argue all people of all ages need a place to belong. And I'm really glad that GSA provides kind of a distinct form of that.
That was an answer. Why? So, do you know how it started? How GUSD and GSA started working together, or how it came to be in the GUSD that GSAs exist?
Yeah, truthfully, I don't know district-wide. I can say that clubs in general, if there's a desire for a club to be formed, it starts from students, it would get approved at the school level, and then generally through like the ASBs, Associated Student Body Organizations, it does get approved at the district level. So that's sort of procedurally how it works. As far as GUSD specifically and the first GSA entering, I don't know. I can give a bit of context just on my personal high school. Again, it is my 19th year at the school. GSA existed when I came at CV, and I didn't even get myself involved until a few years in. So again, it was a club prior to my arrival. So meaning that it goes back a long time at CV, and I would hope at other schools in the district, which I know now have them. I simply just don't know their history as well.
So you told me there's notes. You told me that it started in San Francisco in '98.
Yes.
And you came to CVHS in 2006.
Yes.
So it was already there by the time you
Already there.
Okay. And how many GSAs are there in GUSD, in the entire GUSD?
In GUSD, there are 8, 4 high school, 2 middle, 2 elementary.
Okay. And so you were saying then you came in after, and then it already existed, then you got involved. How did you get involved, or why did you get involved?
Yeah, it was just as sort of our meeting just happened. It was something almost as fortuitous, just kind of occurred. So GSA had been the sponsor, the teacher sponsor, any club on a campus. Students have to, have the concept, and they would bring it to a teacher. So the teachers that had been the sole sponsors of the GSA, one, then another, perhaps someone even predating the first one I mentioned, but they had been members themselves of the LGBTQ community. One who was the sponsor when I entered the school a few years in, sent out a message to friends they knew were allies. And this is when GSA was still known as the Gay Straight Alliance. And his concept was that if he's a member of the LGBTQ community, thereby representing the G, he was seeking his SA, straight ally, so that our sponsorship could model the vision for the club itself, right? So perhaps if students see that an ally is an ally adult is engaged in the club, then they would understand that as ally youth, that they can be part of the club. And additionally, a lot of young people who are allies may in fact be comfortable to be allies, but often that means they're questioning, and so it becomes a safe space for them as well to maybe further understand themselves. So anyways, truly an email was sent, G seeking an SA, and I accepted the role, jumped on the opportunity to be that SA, the straight ally.
Uh, so you've been doing that. I'm sorry.
You know,
For how many years
I
have you
want to
been?
say like 12, 13, 14. It's, yeah, it's,
What drove you towards it? I mean, if I may ask, what drove you
yeah.
personally towards this? Of all the clubs, why would you have chosen this one?
So, I for a long time I think mistakenly thought as kind of just this tried and true from out of the womb, really left wing person to the point that my parents are like, we don't even really know why, but I just was. For a long time, I actually thought I was born at the wrong time. Like I was the kid who should have lived in the 60s and should have been part of all of that, right? And then educate yourself more and you realize, well, no, there's still work to be done in every arena now. And decided just let's get more engaged. And really, there's not much of an answer other than I responded to that email.
Okay.
That was it. But again, my wanting to be involved in social justice in all sorts of ways, and I've channeled that in all sorts of ways, that was happening. And so I guess the email just then
The
also
opportunity.
made sense.
You wanted to do the social justice. The opportunity arose, and you saw the
Yeah,
opportunity.
really something as simple. It was simple. It was simple as that.
And social justice is social justice is social justice. I mean, it's not
Exactly.
like limited to queer people. It's not limited to people of color. I mean, everybody is in this together. All of these smaller communities are in this together.
I'll share a funny anecdote because I feel like I've sort of become recognized as like I'm like a professional ally. Um, in my classroom, there is a lot of stuff. I think I've told you this story, right? But there's a lot of stuff for obviously all the proud work that we've done with GSA, all of our school newspapers about our Ally Week. But I've got all sorts of signage up. So to be clear, I've got Reagan signs and Nixon signs and Mitt Romney signs, and I've got Obama signs and Hillary Clinton signs, and I've got everything. But I have Black Lives Matter, and I've got a number of things, and I wear shirts that are supporting ArtSoc, and I teach lessons on ArtSoc, and I've donated money, and so I just try my best from my place of, not to overuse the term, but my place of privilege to do what I can. During Hanukkah one year, I was wearing leggings with menorahs on them, and one of my students said to me, "Miss Harris, are you Jewish?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, she's wearing Hanukkah leggings." And the student said, "Yeah, but she's just sort of an ally. So you don't know, is she Jewish or is she an ally of the Jewish community?" And my answer was, well, I guess I'm both. I am Jewish and I'm an ally of the Jewish community. So yes, this email blissfully fell in my lap, and I've devoted from my heart and soul a lot of attention to LGBTQ, particularly youth. But quite frankly, another email could have fallen in my lap to help with another, marginalized group, and maybe that'd be the direction that I'm going.
Right.
Yeah.
And what is your role versus how much do you drive the GSA meetings, or what is your role in GSA meetings versus the students' roles in the GSA meetings?
Good question, because I think there is perhaps some misunderstanding just about clubs in general. So, particularly at the high school level, if you are the sponsor of a club, what that often means is you're the adult who sits in the back of the room so that these young people can exercise leadership and engage actually without you, overly on them. This is leadership opportunities, and it's camaraderie opportunities, regardless of what the theme of the club is. And we have, dozens and dozens at all of our GUSD high schools. So formally, the students, we have officers, they plan every moment of the meeting. So they will meet on whatever day of a week. And then generally, the Friday is then a full club meeting. And this is an every 2 week cycle. So maybe they meet to plan, then there's a full meeting, meet to plan. And all that we're there because adult needs to be in the room during anything, right? So we just listen. If there are questions, logistical questions, do we need administrative approval, things of that sort, we're there for that. If I even want to speak about anything, hey, Glendale, we're having Glendale Pride. I ask the students if I may have a moment in their meeting. These are their meetings. Now, sometimes because I am adult and it's not necessarily appropriate to reach out directly to a teen, community organizations from the Trevor Project, Future Perfect Project, even city organizations, elected leaders, if they're trying to connect with GSA, they'll go through me. And I will then tell the students about it. Hey, this is a thing. Are you interested? So I guess I would say I see myself as, again, literally just the adult in the room to watch in their magnificence and creativity, and a liaison when there is community trying to connect to the GSA, rightfully these community members or organizations are reaching out to an adult, and then I'm passing it on to the kids.
Perfect. Yeah, the liaison thing is good. So you liaisoned with GlenDaleOUT.
Yes.
And let's see.
All right. Well, so how about?
I think we're good.
So how about? All right. Now you tell us, how did GlenDaleOUT come to be? Oh, go for it.
We took a couple of stabs at being gay in Glendale, and we kind of had it rolling, and then it sort of fell. Everybody moved on to other things, and it went dormant for a while, and then I had ended up moving into ACE 121 at the time, and I'm an artist. So Gary and I was like, oh my God, there's a gallery here, and I have always had a long-term fantasy of having queer art shows in Glendale. So I worked with Gary and Nick. We put this art show together. It was called Queer, and it was a really nice art show. It was the first one it was called Queer, and then the second line was What Makes You Queer. And we invited everybody into it. We invited not just queer people. It was open to everybody. And it was open to everybody because everybody feels queer in some way. Everybody has something about them, something that lives in them that they're not certain about, or that feels a little bit queer to them. So we wanted them to share that as well, not just the queerness within the queer community, but the queerness within the Glendale community. So we did that. We did it again a second year, and in the second year it was called. It was the first show that you came across, correct?
I believe. No, I think I came across the queer one.
Yeah, you came across the queer one.
And
then what happened?
Okay, so let me show
you. So that's sort of where GlenDaleOUT went. It wasn't called GlenDaleOUT at the time.
Right.
We were originally called Gaydale, which it turns out is a good thing we're no longer called.
Yes.
Queer was in transition in Glendale at the time. Some people were embracing the word queer. The older generation continues to struggle with the word queer because they had to grow up with it in the worst of ways. So so we went with that, and then we weren't calling ourselves anything at that time. We were just doing the art shows.
And then, and that is when I saw somehow, I don't know, was it on social media, but I heard about this art show. And this was start of the summer. So school is done. I am going as, Alicia Harris as a private individual, went with some friends. I want to see this. This is so cool. And went, and actually it was at Abril.
Yeah,
right?
The queer show was a joint between Abril Bookstore, Rosslyn Art Gallery, which is around the corner from ACE 121 at the time, and it was with ACE 121 as well.
And when I was at Abril, and then I actually went to ACE, but you guys were closed. That's what happened. Yeah. And I went there, and again, this is already start of summer, and I said aloud to the gentleman who was working there, I remember simply saying, I said, goodness, I wish this had been during the school year. I would have let my students know about it. Simple as that. And he thought, well, that's cool. Maybe future ones you can. I believe he took my number, and you called me,
Yeah, Arno gave me your number,
right?
and I called you.
Right. And that then
And the rest is history.
And the rest is bye. No, but that then led to the next art show,
Right.
which was so very successful, and we just felt we were, I don't know, picking up on something, a need, an absolute need, the enthusiasm at all for all ages and all levels. And then we said we're keeping up with this, and we continued as GlendaLOUT. That
Yeah.
was the real start.
The intersection of you and I was like the best thing that ever happened to Glendale, what
Yes.
ultimately became known as GlendaleOUT.
Yes.
The second show was called GlendaleOUT,
Right,
and then
right.
we ultimately adopted the name of GlendaleOUT and kept it. And the intersection was that we had a conversation, and the big light bulb went on over my head, and I was like, okay, we can keep doing art shows and hanging out and drinking wine, and it's great, like we're
Yes.
having a good time. But if we want to become part of a broader community of Glendale, it is a fact that the Glendale Unified School District is one of the anchors of what the point of Glendale is.
Of course.
The Americana maybe is one, I don't know.
Right.
But the Glendale Unified School District is also one. So if you want to work with community, reach out into a broad community in Glendale and not just be insulated within a small queer circle of artists, then you definitely want to talk to the Glendale Unified School District. And the second part was it occurred to me after our initial conversation or soon after that that we were doing this queer endeavor in Glendale, and there was this whole other thing where there's how many students are in Glendale Unified School District?
I think we're at 25,000.
Jeez. There's 25,000 kids.
It could be more. I don't know. Don't quote me. But it's something to that effect.
So figure out whatever percentage
Yeah.
of those might be queer or
course.
questioning or curious or just not sure about what's going on with themselves. And they're walking around Glendale, and where do they see any example of queer in Glendale? There's nothing. This is a desert of queerness for anybody, for any kid who's struggling with their identity. And I was like, well, what purpose are we serving if we're not being able to have that presence and these kids are able to see themselves in their own community where they live and where they go to school and where their friends are. So what that was about. So we ended up doing the second art show, which was called GlendaleOUT.
Yes. So you started touching on this. Why does it matter to have a visible queer voice in Glendale for people of all ages?
Oh, I answered all the questions at once.
That's okay. That's okay.
I answered
No.
my
It's
entire
great.
list. I answered it all at my
Yeah.
answer. Specifically for that reason, because you have the kids that are struggling, that are questioning, that aren't sure what's happening to themselves, and they're looking around their neighborhood where they live, and they don't see any answer. There's nothing that says this exists in Glendale, this is welcome in Glendale, this is possible in Glendale, or this just merely exists in Glendale. That's a real thing. It's not your imagination, it's a real thing.
I've had a number of students over the years who have left for college and immediately there have come out. Right? And while wonderful that they found the space, why did they have to leave? Right? Why should anybody have to, you use the phrase, export themselves, essentially?
Right.
Export themselves. People move to communities. If you think of even immigration patterns, people move to communities to have familiarity. So, right? So, but young people, so let's say we just say, well, all the queer stuff, just go to West Hollywood. Well, one, not acceptable. And two, if you're a young person, that's also not even an option necessarily, right? So you have to have acceptable, acceptance, visible representation in all communities, right?
Well, there's a lot of people who think that. They're like, well, why don't you just go to West Hollywood if you want to be gay? And I'm like, wait, I'm gay when I come back home. I don't cross the border. I suddenly put on my gay stuff and then I'm gay and then I come back to the border and I take I'm still gay. I sleep here gay. I wake up gay. I have breakfast gay. You don't just which is number one of that. And then number two is, why can't I be gay in Glendale? Why do I have to go somewhere else to be gay?
Of course. I mean, isn't that a modification, a version of a sort of a separate but equal? Well, you can totally exist fine, but there.
Right. Yeah.
Well, if that was outlawed, or 1954 in Brown v. Board of Ed, and 1964 in the Civil Rights Act, right? Then, right, we shouldn't do that, right? We shouldn't do that.
All right, what else?
Um,
So we had our accidental intersection.
yes.
So how and why do we work together? Oh, that was your question.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, again, let's then get just real about this. Even though, Glendale is part of LA County, even in, liberal LA County, LGBTQ youth, still has tremendous, these still young people still have tremendous like suicide rates, homelessness rates. There is still an epidemic that needs to be addressed. So if Glendale is one of the largest cities within LA County, right, then we cannot be ignoring this population. So thereby, if adults, queer adults, are wanting to really make a change for this community, it's not just for them because perhaps they have come to terms with things and they're comfortable and they're living their full, wonderful lives. They want to pay it forward then to the youth so that they can be doing so sooner, and simply be safe. So seems to
Be
me
safe.
be
It's
safe
about being safe
and it, like in any
and not being afraid.
and not being afraid in any social justice situation, you try to first reach out to the most marginalized, which is going to be the youth. It is the youth in this particular set of circumstances, right?
Yeah, and also additionally, I don't like influence GSA at all. I don't influence GUSD at all. I don't influence. What we typically do is you're an ally, and we participate together in this endeavor called GlendaleOUT.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to you participating in your endeavor called GSA,
Right.
and then what will typically happen is, for instance, I got an email today, and I was like, "Oh, this could be something Alicia is interested in. Let me forward it to her."
Right.
You and I will have a discussion about it at some point. Maybe there's a space to make it happen, and if it's not a fit, then it's not a fit, and we move on to the next idea.
Right. Yeah. To be clear, right? I mean, we're speaking about the lovely intersection between some of the effort of GUSD with inclusion and Glendale Out, but Glendale Out also does, bar nights. This is kids are not there, right? Glendale Out is again, it is an organization for all ages. We came about again, not even with me with my teacher hat on. Like I said, I went to the bookstore to see the art because I thought it sounded remarkable. But within Glendale Out, those of us involved, I think what's been neat is that we do kind of have different niches. And so if there is something that is youth appropriate, then I'm sort of become the point person. Right.
And the point person.
Right.
The key point person.
Key point
not
person.
Like the person, not the one creating or driving it.
No, just the point person. Again, to say to the young people, what do you think? And this is an important point. Like, who am I? A almost 47-year-old cis het woman to be telling these students, here's this thing that would be good for you.
Right.
Here's a thought, what do you think? They veto plenty of things because it's not what's going to help them or advance, their work. But again, to be clear, this is just a facet. I mean, Glendale Out does a number of things that are, much more adult centric because to also provide comfort. And we've received such awesome emails from some folks in the community over the years, right? Like they heard of us. I thought I was the only gay person in Glendale. Well, no, of course you're not. But how insane at this day and age to think that, right? And we have so again, we're working for that, just simply to eradicate that as a concept here. This is a city like any other, which is going to be a cornucopia of all varieties of people.
Right, and we just want to be part of the narrative that is Glendale.
That's it.
All right, cool.
Glendale Out.
I think we're good.
I think that was good.
Right.
I liked it.
Cheers.
All right.
Bye.